Welcome to Naked Notes, where two chicks talk about notes while they're naked. What? That's not what this podcast is about? Welcome to Naked Notes, where you will learn the honest, unfiltered, and naked truth about buying non-performing notes throughout the country. Whether you're brand new to this type of investing or have your own portfolio, let Naked Notes be your guide through the note world. Now, here are your hosts, Jasmine and Natasha.
Welcome to Naked Notes. I'm your host, Jasmine Wilwa.
And I'm Natasha Navarro. Thank you guys for joining us on Season 4, Episode 12. I had to look at my notes and make sure. Are we already at Episode 12?
And Season 4, baby. So get a load of this. This is a visual thing, as you can see. Why? Because we're cool like that now, right? No.
YouTube.
but actually we're filming on YouTube. So we are here live with one of our most successful vendors that we work with here. So we're very excited to talk to you about, because today we're talking about servicing. So without further ado, Natasha, what's our topic today?
So today we thought it was important because if you guys remember back in Season 1, we had a servicer on. We thought we've had so much growth happen in the past year and a half. We've had so many new people join. And some of the questions that we're getting asked consistently is, how long does it take to get something boarded? What type of documents do you need? What does the process look like? And Jasmine and I are very happy to answer those questions. However, we figured we would just go directly to the source and have them answer it for you.
100%. And so I'm very excited to bring Michelle Lester to this call, because I've worked with these people for, goodness, I want to say over 6 years at this point. And it's a relationship that's helped me foster the growth of my business. So if you're out there, I promise you, I'm going to bring you my vendors that make it work for me, make the magic happen. She's one of them. So without further ado, let's bring in Michelle Lester. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All the way in from what? South Carolina, is that correct?
South Carolina, yes, where it's very, very hot right now.
Well, we are twinning.
Yeah, it's super hot here too, surprisingly. By the beach, it is very hot. It's crazy.
We are twinning, so don't worry about that for sure.
Didn't you, in fact, make a trip to South Carolina, Jeff?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's jump into this. I mean, you guys are so important to my business. This is the backbone of it, that I did, in fact, get on a plane and fly to South Carolina. And what's amazing is that one of the things we talk to you guys about here is this business is not one we have to get on a plane to go visit your assets. So what do? You go and visit the important people in your life, like Michelle Lester. And so let's talk about that. Was that the first time we met in person, Michelle?
I think I might have met you at Paper Source once before, and then you came to the office. So, but yes, in person, because, most of it is on the phone.
Yes. Almost on a weekly basis on the phone. And every now and then we may run into the conferences where we're both busy. And so you work with an extraordinary team out there. We have a boatload of questions for you. So I'll have Natasha get started. One of the things, though, hopefully she throws in there is that whether or not it takes longer to get a performing note or a non-performing note boarded, but I just want to throw that in there. I don't know what direction she's going to go. Where are we headed?
Does anyone know? No, we wanted to make sure that you guys, when we talk about our Black Book resources, those are like our coveted resources that are typically reserved for our Note Assistance Program members. So to be able for us to share somebody that we have been working with for quite some time, Jasmine, as a matter of fact, I'm sure you don't know this, Michelle, but the first note I ever bought in January of 2017 in Fairgrove, Michigan was already boarded with NAM. So I left it with you guys. I didn't know any difference. I was like, I'll leave it with NAM. And I was so impressed with like the back office and how everything worked. And so I have been working with you guys literally since the very first note that I ever purchased. And I know Jasmine utilizes you for her personal portfolio as well. So some of the questions, to start off is one, we talked about Jasmine, but for yourself personally, because this is a very small industry, servicing in general. So for yourself, how long have you been in this industry, and have you always worked for this company?
So the same ownership, but we've been through a couple different iterations. And so my company is Real Estate Property Services. Real Estate Property Services is a vendor for National Asset Mortgage, which is the servicer. And we actually are the back office service provider for both National Asset Mortgage and Georgia Mortgage Resources. Georgia Mortgage Resources is licensed solely in Georgia. So if you board properties with our three companies, you would work, your servicer would be Georgia Mortgage. I would be still your back office. So that way, if you have, we're also, it's just an FYI, we've gotten licensed in a lot of states here recently. that we weren't previously. So National Asset Mortgage is licensed in about 72% of the U.S. population right now.
Nice.
That's amazing.
That's right. And we're working on the rest. So that's just good news, because I know when someone is just starting out, they might be buying in one area, but then they you don't want to be bound to an area, and you definitely want to be able to keep your notes, consolidated with one servicer as much as possible. So that's why we have the Georgia Mortgage Resource as a possibility for those if you're looking at Georgia, and then the rest are with NAM. And Real Estate Property Services is the back office service provider. So once the consumer front-facing work has been done, that's what the servicer, all that licensed activity, they handle that. Everything after that, the back office comes to me. So once a payment has been collected, once it's deposited into the bank, then I take over and we process the payment, and we make sure it gets divided into whatever it needs to be. And we make sure that all of the documentation in the systems are in the systems properly. And we are the ones who board the assets. So that's why you're talking to me about boarding. We make sure that we have all of the stuff that needs to be done. And we also do most of the investor communication.
So here's what's interesting. I'm going to slow it down, and I know we're in season 4, but just in case we have some rebels out there who are like, you know what, I'm going to start right here. Okay, I'm going to listen to season 4, episode 11, or what are we, 12 now?
12, yeah.
And so if you're just tuning in and you're just rebelling without a cause, what are services and what is a value to their to your notes? So if you're buying mortgage notes, one thing I want you to understand is that one of the steadfast rules we have here at the Note Assistance Program is I will not self-service my note. Okay. And so when we're in training classes, if you've ever been trained by us, we've actually had you recite that aloud. Everybody.
I will never, ever self-service.
Self-service on notes. So if you have a mortgage right now, if you ever had a mortgage, okay, the servicer is the person that you are sending your payments to. You and I know you don't write checks to Wells Fargo. Okay. It's not like, hey, it's check to Wells Fargo. You're going to send it to a servicer. When you sign your mortgage documents, it's going to be in clear day, a whole separate sheet of paper to say, this is where you're going to send your payments to. That is the servicer, and that is her position and her role with all of what we do. So to be clear, they keep us out of trouble. You guys you work with compliance, right?
I don't directly work in compliance. Compliance is the servicing side. But yes, so our job is to make sure that you're protected and that consumer interaction happens. So that, that's our job, is we make sure that if we're going to be calling on a customer, we're going to be doing it properly. Exactly. And there are rules, and they change quite frequently, in fact. And those licenses that we just mentioned that we have gotten, they cost money, they cost time, they cost effort, and they cost knowledge. And so back to your original question about how long I've been doing this, I've been with the companies since 2011. So I'm working on my 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations. Glad to be there with you guys, man, for sure. With you especially. So I mean, there's so many things that you guys do, and it's such an important role, right? And so most, if not all notes, especially the ones that come to the Note Assistance Program, have a servicer. And just for that, like you said, to keep you in communications. Guys, we tell you over and over again, if you listen to this podcast, you can make this a full-time job. But we here, we're going to teach you how to delegate and handle the professionals like Michelle. So what do we got next for?
Well, I wanted to expand on the question that you started to ask, which is, in your opinion, I mean, we preach it all the time, never self-service because of compliance, because of all the rules, because of the thing. But is there any one or two takeaways for you that when you're talking to someone who might be brand new and asking you, well, why would I pay you every single month to do this for me? I could just do this myself. Can't I just collect payments myself? Can't I just talk to the borrower myself? So do you have one or two things that you usually say, like, well, this is why we encourage people to work with a servicer with their portfolio?
I have a lot of things. The main thing is to make sure that you're doing the right things and saying the right things. That's important. But the other thing is, I don't know too many folks who just happen to have a loan servicing software hanging around. And when we're talking about boarding, we have the notes coming in, we qualify them, we know what we're looking at, we know whether or not it amortizes correctly, whether or not just based on the data that's coming to us. A lot of this data, it's changed hands several times. There's been an adjustment to the note at a servicer that it somehow didn't translate into the data that we get. We know what we're looking at. Someone who doesn't,
get in a lot of trouble.
Losing time and money trying to figure something out that is just not, we pay for ourselves really, and just making sure that we get it in there. And then when the payments come in, literally they could be, is it depending on how it's the note is set up, it could have, especially if you have any kind of weird wonky thing, if you have an adjustable rate, our system tracks that. So, the software that we provide, the knowledge that we provide, and the human resources that we provide are just invaluable. I would never walk in and try to do it without some basis.
I would agree. And one of the things I want to bring to everyone's attention is that 100%, like she just said, they pay for themselves, right? And so, again, not everybody notes the same way we do over here, but if you join the NAP Nation, we tell you, we make you budget on the front end services like Michelle's, right? So you don't have any question. You don't have to worry about, again, if you get multiple notes, this can become a full-time job, right? And so you have to figure out where you want to put your energy. So we love working with companies like yours who are going to be able to help us stay in compliance, right? And also in communication with the borrower, because sometimes you're going to have statutes of limitations coming in and all these things. So you have to continue to communicate with these people so they know that you have a vested interest.
So one of the things that we get asked the most, especially because most of the stuff that if not all the stuff that we purchased has been originated by someone else. So we're typically transferring it from one servicer to you guys, our preferred vendor. So when we're doing that, the question is, and I know this is a very broad question, but what does that process look like for you guys? What's happening on the back end that the person, the buyer, the new lender can't see all the work you guys are doing? Can you kind of give us a high level overview of what's happening to get everything transferred over?
Yes, because there are steps involved. So once you have purchased the note, you can't just immediately send it to a new servicer. There's actually a guideline that regulates that. And the guideline says that the borrower must be noticed within a certain time frame. And then that time frame has to, before there's a lead time between the notice going to the borrower and then being able to actually make the transfer. There's 15 days. So if you want to move it to a new servicer, you have to notify them who the new servicer is, where those payments go in writing, and then you have to wait adequate amount of time to have that notice be delivered. So if you buy a note today and you want it sent over to NAM tomorrow, that's just not going to happen. There's at least a minimum of 15 days. But what's going to happen is the biggest thing I can tell you, especially if you are new to this business, what we have is a lot of folks, they get really excited and they want to do this and they go ahead and buy the note, but they haven't set up their entity docs. Well, you also have to have all of that stuff set up to begin with, because we're going to ask you to provide your articles of organization, your registration with the Secretary of State in the state in which you do business. We're going to ask you to send us documentation that you are who you say you are.
So wait a minute. Wait, time out. So you're going to make them verify that they're actually a real company?
Yes.
This is amazing.
What do you know? Yes.
What
you can't just do it in your own personal name.
Well, I mean,
you could. I don't recommend it at all. But
here's the point. My point is that people like you help us by asking these questions, slow things down. Because we're, like you said, we're ready to rush in. Let's get bored. Send me my check, right? Mm-hmm. And assuming you sent us the check and adhere to that, the bottom line is when the time comes for things to get checked out, right? And we don't have that inside, you're going to get a slap on the hand, right? If you haven't been verified, you don't know this, and now all of a sudden, things come to a point of contention. You don't want at that point just start fumbling around. So what I love about your company is you're going to get this stuff up front. You're not going to be bullied into fast forwarding it, because that will cost us all in the end. So we slow down, we check out boxes, you get us everything you need to make sure that you can be set up properly. And then, of course, we're going to take care of the loan stuff on the back end. That's awesome.
Right. So back to the boarding process. What you also have to do is communicate with the servicer that's transferring out. And we are somewhat reliant upon that servicer, working with us. And this happens every day. It's not, and there's enough business out there for everybody. So it's fine. But they do, we have the servicer that is transferring out has to approve the goodbye letter. And they're actually the ones that then send it. And then we get the note in. And there's a data tape that gets sent to us that tells us everything we need to know about that property. And if there's any questions, then the servicers talk, well, this seems to not be doing properly. There seems to be something missing. Did somebody do a modification that's not reflected here? So that when we get it boarded actually into our system, we can hit the ground running, because as soon as it's in our system, what's going to happen is that day, the consumer's getting a telephone call, welcoming them and letting them know that we're now the person that they'll be talking with. And, letting them know that there's a human being there that is their resource for any questions that they have. And then, of course, we send the letter too, but we do personal outreach. Anybody that gets boarded with us, they get a telephone call and an introduction from their personal server.
And so what's awesome about that is, again, talking about people when they're eager and they're buying their first note, right? A lot of times they're going to do some things like giving their phone numbers out, right? And what we love is that you are reaching out to them. You're being proactive, so we can go and buy more notes, right? And so if you're going to reach out and get that the contact with them and let them know everything's okay, because that can be a very disheveling process for the borrower as well, right? The guy in the home is like, "What's going on? I don't know where to send my mortgage," and that's one of the reasons we got into so much trouble in 2008, right? And so people like her are here to help us from repeating those mistakes or accidentally falling into them, because not everybody woke up with any bad intentions. Sometimes we're just moving so fast. And that's what I want you to talk about real quickly, if I may. Like, how is it, especially for you right now, right? In the middle of the recession that's happening right now, which means a lot of people are refining. That has to be more business for you, right? How busy are you right now? Because we did what had to be a small trade for you, but I think it was a $2 million trade 2 months ago, and it's just settling with you guys. So what type of volume are you dealing with, and like what's going on right now in this environment for you?
There is a lot of moving parts and consolidating and moving and shifting. That happens all the time when it's a large amount of assets, like you just did a very large trade. And it does take time. And, especially with the moving pieces with what you did, was because you then had a lot of people that you brought with you. And we have to get everybody signed up, and we want to make sure that we have all that documentation. And so we board a bunch of notes all at once. On the servicing side, it's actually cleaner because the agents are just working with the consumer, what makes it confusing for the consumer. And that's really our biggest thing. We want our investor clients to be happy. We do a good job, and we know we do a good job, and I can reassure them. I know what I'm doing. Might need to pause a minute, but I know what I'm looking at, and I know how to make this transition positive for you.
Right.
But for the consumer, we want it to be seamless. We don't want it to be confusing, and we don't want somebody to be calling them and saying, "Well, I'm the new note owner," and introducing another variable in there. And another thing that the servicing manager, who's great, he always talks about is, this might be the third or fourth time this note has been sold.
Yes.
So by the time the consumer gets, boarded, they're very frustrated. And so our agents are very adept and do well at calming them down. And it's, we're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you know what to do, and you know where to send your payment, and to take away any confusion you may have. So that's all happening. Here's
what I wanted to tell you, because I just had a huge flashback when I was walking through your office, right? You guys gave me a wonderful tour. It was great. Took me out to lunch and everything. But what I remembered when we went to the other side, where you guys were actually communicating with the borrowers, and you're 100% correct. That's one of the things I think separates you. One of the many things that separates you from all the other services we work with. Obviously, we have multiple relationships with different services. One of the things I love about you is just that when I walked to the other side, you had people speaking different languages if needed to, right? To make sure that they felt comfortable and that there was no language barriers in between, because this is their home. And so you guys had people taking their time, a whole separate department, to communicate with these guys. And that is one of the things that makes all the difference. So not having too many, what do they call them, cooks in the kitchen, right? Chefs in the kitchen. And just making sure we have a streamlined communication, because you don't want to disgruntle a borrower, especially if you buy a performing note, right? You just want them to keep paying.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions I have for you that I honestly don't even know the answer to is, will it help the process for you guys and or for the new lender if they already have an account set up with you, or is it they shouldn't set an account with you until they purchase their first note and they're ready to do so?
So I'm of two minds there. What we don't want is you don't want to take the steps too soon. So or too late. So you want to make sure that if you're making a purchase, your LLC name that it's going, or your entity name it's going in. You want to have that set up. If your ducks are in a row in that fashion, and you have all of that set up, then it really is just a matter of calling and saying, here's my documents, here's what I need, and then please reach out to the new servicer. So that it doesn't take like a couple weeks lead time for that to get, because we can't do anything until we receive an asset. If you are a brand new note owner and you're buying one asset, the biggest thing I can tell you is have your ducks in a row in terms of what your company name is, have those documents available to us. And because they're going to ask you that anyway, because that's what your trailing docs are going to have once the collateral file. Correct. You have to have all of that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's another great point when it comes down to the training that we talk about here, right? And so at the Notice Systems program, it's about processes, right? And so again, I always run into one or two people, the people who will like, listen, I'm laying my money down. I'm ready to just follow steps in order, what you say. The other people, I put my money, let's fast forward and skip a few steps. And that is so huge because what you just said is you don't want to do it too soon. You don't want to do it too late. And so it's like, oh, so just follow the instructions. Natasha's going to send you an email and say, now's the time to make sure you get everything together and start, communicating with them. There's no need to, especially based on our system, to go out and go above and beyond and start communicating with them until you get the green light from Natasha. And then based on that, you can start setting your own timelines. But I would totally agree with you. It's one of those delicate things. You don't want to do it too soon. You don't want to do it too late. And a lot of what you need to be doing now before it becomes too late is setting up your entities, having everything, electronic versions ready to send over. And that's what we help you with at the Notice Systems program. So that was a good point, actually.
Yeah. And what about, I know this is one of Jasmine's big points today, were the performing notes versus non-performing notes. What are the differences and what you can expect on the boarding side, if there are any, or just differences in general and how you guys handle those?
So in terms of boarding, it's not very different because we're going to need the same documentation. We're going to get the same data. If there has been any kind of doing your due diligence and understanding what the previous history was is important. If there's been a modification, if there's been some adjustment to the account, having that documented and knowing that is important. But if it's performing, what you have generally is two things, because you have a consumer on the other end who might be chomping at the bit to make a payment. And we've actually had with the consumers calling us before we have it boarded, which we love that. And we're happy to help them. But sometimes it can be confusing for everybody if somebody's calling in to make a payment and we haven't gotten in the system yet. So that
Amen.
But that's the best kind of problem you can have. Mm-hmm. On the non-performing side, you don't have that consumer so much. So, reaching out. So it's a little bit more difficult. And so we do like to get the collection notes from the previous service or whatever information we can get. And then we just jump in. But in terms of data, it's really the same process and the same information.
So I have an impromptu question. Can you tell them a little bit about some of the ancillary services that you guys have? So let's say we've got all of our company information. We've gone through the process. My company is boarded with you properly. You're working on the back end with the note. And so once that's all settled, where do we go from there? And I guess mostly with a non-performing note, right? Because performing notes is just kind of, you just collect the payments, go to escrow. Maybe they check on taxes every 6 months. Or do you guys do that as well?
We track the taxes. So
Beautiful.
we in fact, that's not really an option. We track the taxes because if especially either way, you've got a contract with someone that you're guaranteeing that the taxes are going to be paid. If the account is current, it's non-negotiable. The taxes have to be paid.
Amen.
So we track to make sure that happens. And we will do it if there's an escrow account, we'll do it if the escrow is flush. If there's a problem, if the escrow has a shortfall, we're going to wait and get permission before we use any investor funds. However, again, non-negotiable. If the account is current, taxes have to be paid. They just do. That's our job to protect that consumer on the other side of the wall, Mm-hmm. So we do track the taxes. We do insurance tracking. So if there is no insurance, we will do outreach on that. We will send the letters to let the consumer know, hey, your contract says you're supposed to have insurance. You don't. Here's a time frame in which you have to get it. Okay, here's another letter that said you still haven't done it. Now the investor has the option to force place or add insurance and cause the consumer to have to pay on the back end of that. So we do that. If it happens to be an owner of finance note, we help with the code violations because it's a very different beast. If it's a mortgage, there's a mortgage and deed, it's in somebody else's name as part of the sale transaction. If it's an owner of finance deal, a lot of areas don't recognize that as mm-hmm. The contracted party for the contract for deed is not necessarily responsible for some of those things in terms of code violations and issues. It goes back to the deed holder. And there's some things that roll to the deed, to the taxes that we have to help with. And, we've been in the owner finance business for a very long time. We've been in the contract for deed business for a very long time.
Yes, indeed.
We know what we're doing there. It's a niche area that
People get themselves into a lot of trouble. I mean, even having worked with other servicers, trust me, there's a lot of servicers that do not track that stuff for you. So
that's what I was going to say.
Great to have that option, or just to
that's
have
what
that.
I'm going to bring up too. You guys get what you pay for, right? So just remember, you're a bank now, not just a regular investor. So you have to, in my opinion, okay, be responsible and not just go out there and try to find the cheapest service you can. That's not what this is about. You need to find the people that are going to actually protect you and provide a service that the big banks use, okay? And so that's our goal always of the Note Assistance Program, to start transitioning into the products, vendors, and services that the bigger banks use, because they obviously, regardless of the cost, are what keep them out of trouble, right? And so keep in mind that you're going to want to go find services that are going to bring a lot of these ancillary costs, whether you services, whether you use them or not. The fact that you guys have people who can help us secure properties too, right?
Right. So if it's a non-performing, and if we send a vendor out to check on the property, we will. In fact, that's again not a negotiable. In our delinquent account performing model or processes and procedures, there are points in time in which we will send a vendor. I think it's 45 days, and then it refreshes at 90 days. Good. And if we go and we find the property vacant, we will secure, because we're protecting our investors' interest. If we leave a vacant property, something's going to happen. You can have somebody come in, then you could have drug activity. It becomes a mess quickly. So we want to make sure that we get it secured as quickly as possible for you.
And so here's the deal. A lot of you guys are thinking to yourself, well, maybe I don't need all that right now. I have one note. I might not buy another note again. Okay. But if you're actually on your second, third, or fifth note, this is the type of company you need to align yourself with, again, because when you have multiple notes, I'm not sure how efficient you're going to be with your, sending your Google alarms to make sure every tax day is up and running, every insurance policy has been caught up to. If you run your business the way you should, or the way we teach you want to leave that to them. Spend your time doing what? Taking down OPM, right? Spend your time finding more notes, scraping the tape. And so really, I think, as we wrap things up, I want you guys to focus on really what your contribution to your business is, right? Can be, and then leave the rest up to the professionals. You got some more questions?
I have one final question before we start wrapping up. And this to me was the biggest one. It's kind of more of a statement than a question, but what I loved about you guys the most is that you deal with all types of paper. And Amen. For someone who is a very diverse buyer like I am, and most of our community is, to be able to house your portfolio with one vendor and just have everything there, not have to have it spread out to multiple servicers, is so amazing. So can you kind of go into the different types of paper that you guys provide services for?
Yes. So if you are purchasing a rental property, you would contract directly with Real Estate Property Services. Again, we can back office service provide not only to the servicers, but to you as the investor. So that in that scenario, you would be doing the outreach yourself. So if you really want to self-service and you want to take that risk on yourself, even for, a contract for deed, or say
a rental or something like that,
a rental or a purchase, we can just use our loan servicing software. Because remember, I said not a lot of people have that just sitting around. That you could contract directly with reps, and then we would just, at the point of after it's been collected, do the payment application and take it from there. And we can handle that.
That's huge. I didn't know that. Here's why that's huge, ladies and gentlemen. It's huge because, like you said, there's always a rebel without a cause out there, right? I want to self-service, okay? And so if you're going to, I got to tell you, you can call Latrice right now. I'll tell you what the software is that she's talking about. It's expensive, okay? It's expensive. So first thing is, you probably don't want to jump out and do it unless you know you're going to be buying hundreds of notes. So in the meantime, this is an opportunity to get familiar with the software, and also, like she said, they will allow you access to it. So that's huge, right? It's almost like a white label type of thing, it seems.
Well, we have a portal, so we'll accept the payments, we'll apply them, and then you'll get to view, right? Gotcha. So, but you'll tell us, I accepted this payment. But our investor portal that we have built is like a bridge between the servicing software and our asset management software. Mm-hmm. And everyone gets access to that, and you get see it's 100% real time. If I accept a payment today and it's applied to my system, you see it. So you don't have to call me and say, did somebody make a payment? Because it's in the software and you can just see it.
I would totally use that even for my rentals, just for the accounting purposes. But that's huge. Thanks so much. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So then the other service, the licensed activity that we do, I would not recommend anyone, honestly, if you are buying any kind of sale paper, to be with a not licensed entity. I just honestly wouldn't. It is not worth it. We've been around for a long time, and you can get yourself in trouble really fast. And you might think, well, I'm just somebody small and it's just one note. They don't care. If you do something wrong, you do something wrong. And it's very easy to be even perceived that you've done something wrong, even if that's not your intention. Yep. So
I would agree. That's some very sound advice. And I think, at the end of the day, if you've taken this training program, you'll see that is embedded throughout, right? We just want to do what's right, even if it's just to seem we're doing what's right. I mean, even when you talk about if someone's looking to maybe get a loan modification or have a supplement with their payments, we're going to send on a hardship package, right? And so doing the right thing, taking those steps to send out and collect the actual data is what we're looking like. And so I love that you guys help with that too. Tell them how to contact you just in case, because I know you guys help. You can also help us set up seller financing deals on the front end. So how do they contact someone like you to get their note career started?
So investor services at realestatepropertyservices.com is the email. So investor services at realestatepropertyservices.com. And that will get you to a listserv that has myself and our two investor services folks who we all get it. And generally the first person that you're going to talk to in our company is Donica Seymour. And she does a great job, and she makes sure that you know what documents you need. And she's very good at telling you what you need to know about the business and about us. And, she's the stay on task lady.
Love
she
Donica,
keeps everybody.
yeah. Donica's what's up. Okay, and so then if we were interested in finding out what state you were licensed in, is that on your website? I guess, how do we find that out?
That would be nationalassetmortgage.com. You would.
All right, nationalassetmortgage.com. If you haven't heard that, write it down, guys.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we were just talking about her. Donica, we miss you. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. I learned some stuff today, so I always love when we do those type of podcasts where they're just as informative to me as I know they will be to our listeners. We really have enjoyed working with your companies. We appreciate all that you've done. I think the last thing I wanted to briefly touch on before we say goodbye to you officially is, can you tell people, this is the magic word that we use, what would be the most important thing that people need to keep in mind for their mindset as they work with you or any servicer, really?
So we said it at the top of the call, is patience. You have to be patient, but almost equally important is humanity, because at the end of the day, there's human beings at every end of this process. Nice. So whether it's the person who's making you bought a note, but you bought a note with an occupant. And so that's a human being, and they have their issues. And you have your servicer who, there might be multiple human beings there. Right. And then you have yourself. So
what about me?
You have Jasmine. Yes. You have
from a human being.
That's right. So in our job is to make all of those human connections work, and make sure everybody's happy. And to maybe buffer some things along the way and remind you to have some patience. But our job is to make sure that things are done properly and that everyone is calm about them. And
nobody
sometimes
skips steps.
Right. And so being patient and being a human being is very, very important. And just understanding that there's not very many people out there in this business that are not wanting to do the right thing and to help. And even other servicers, we get frustrated at the, something in terms of data or something, but we're friends and we call each other and, hey, how you doing?
Yep.
Because it's a very small world too.
And we need each other. I got to tell you that I'm believe it or not, this is my 10th year in the industry, and you guys are like my sisters over there. Trust me, you know this. I call you whenever I need anything. Sometimes we just need to talk to. How do I calm myself down from this? So
talk me off the ledge.
There's more to them than just the servicing, but it's all about organically building those relationships. So I couldn't think of a better way for you to end it with the humanity part. I mean, patience, yes, especially nowadays when we're in the middle of a quarantine and a COVID-19 type of thing. So humanity is huge. We're always talking about that here. And it's particularly with you. It's one of the things that you need to be patient about is like just giving you guys time to tally up the escrows and transfer the escrow parts, right? I mean, a lot of times you still now have to go back to the seller and have them pony up for anything outstanding. So a lot of this stuff, like you said, is going to take time. You're chasing people around. And so these women whether they know it or not, have helped me mature with my patients as well. So stick around. You can learn a lot from them.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate it. We're going to do our wrap up now and get through some events, but we thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you on YouTube. We'll make sure to send you the link. So for those of you that are listening to our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, make sure to check out the video on YouTube so you get the full effect.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I appreciate your business and the relationship that we've built. So thank you so much.
Of course. Don't forget to tell everyone I said hello at the office.
Yes. Absolutely. I will.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So we're going to wrap it up. Make sure that we talk about some of our events that we have coming up this Friday. As in every Friday now, we have Ask the Pink Hat at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
We're ready for you.
Yeah, so that's been really fun for those of you. We're going to have some speakers coming up. I think October 3rd, there's a special Saturday, Ask the Pink Hat with Belinda Savage and one of our members that is in the police force. We're going to be doing police force and military at the same time. So these are just really good ways to stay plugged in.
Talking about our thrift savings plans. Exactly. So again, really, it's recorded, but check out the YouTube on the, like you said, I think it was the 12th of October. And make sure that you get all your friends and family, because now's the time to show them how they can take advantage of the same opportunities investment-wise that all these accredited investors are doing right now.
Awesome. Our next chance for you guys to join us, we just had our coffee and notes, which was epic. We just had our Inner Circle meeting, which was amazing. So the next event that you can plug yourself into is our Lunch and Learn that will be on Thursday, September 24th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the perfect place to join, regardless if you are seasoned or brand new. We show you inventory. We do a topic. We have a member talk about their story. We allow you to network. So it is a full-fledged hour and a half of your time, but it is well worth it, especially for those of you looking to learn more about what we do or just to stay plugged in, maybe even looking for OPM.
This is your time to make some money. These are some power hours. We look forward to seeing you guys.
Tentatively, we have our Mortgage No Lab, which is our 2-day event that we normally do 4 times a year, scheduled for the first weekend in November. We will let you know if that's a firm date as we go on. Jasmine and I are always actively working on how do we keep this informative, educational, but exciting for you. So that's that balance that we're looking for right now. As always, make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, write us a review, like our Facebook page, like our YouTube channel, especially if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Share this with your friends, and please stay calm and safe.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for joining Naked Notes. Jasmine and Natasha are not attorneys, and this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. For more information about how to work with the Note Assistance Program, please go to www.noteassistanceprogram.com to get details of the programs they offer to help you get started in notes. You can also find them on Facebook at Note Assistance Program. If you are in California or New York, be sure to check out their meetup.com page for monthly lunch and learns, note labs, and other events. Make sure to check back regularly for new episodes and let Naked Notes be your trusted partner on your note journey.